In this video, we're going through the top 3 ETFs that you can buy at TD Ameritrade. Now, when compiling this list, I was mostly looking for commission-free ETFs, which means that you can trade these ETFs without paying a single penny. As long as you are on the TD Ameritrade platform, you can buy these ETFs with no fees whatsoever. These also offer great returns, and they are a very safe way to invest your money long term, since you're investing in so many different companies. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 1 is the SPDR Portfolio Total Stock Market ETF. And this is also called SPTM. This fund basically gets you exposure to a really wide range of US companies, of domestic companies that are valued at least $100 million on average. The current expense ratio that you're paying for this fund is just 0.03%, which is very low and saves you a ton of money in the long term. It also actually has a pretty great dividend rate at 1.8% every year. In terms of risk, this fund is about average because it just has so many different companies in its portfolio, almost I think 3,000 companies in the US. So if some companies go down, it's not really going to affect your returns as much as if you're investing in a fund that had much fewer companies in it. And then if you look at these standardized returns, you can see that in the last 10 years, this fund has grown about 13.9% per year. So some of the companies that are included in this fund are the huge companies in the US, such as Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and you name it. So these companies have the biggest percent of assets within this fund because they are some of the biggest companies in the US. The SPTM ETF actually tracks the SSGA Total Stock Market Index. And this market index normally contains companies that are all above at least 100 million in market cap. So yeah, this is a really great and pretty safe way to start investing your money. If you are using TD Ameritrade as your platform, as your brokerage, then this is an awesome way to invest in the US economy as a whole. All right, so next up on our list is the SPDR Portfolio World EX US ETF. And this is also known as SPDW. If you buy this fund, you are basically investing in the international stock market. This particular fund tracks the S&P developed ex-US BMI index, which tracks about 1,600 global companies all around the world. The expense ratio for this fund is 0.04%, which is actually still very low. It's a little bit higher than the SPTM fund, but for an international ETF that's commission free, this is actually very low. Its annual dividend is 2.71%. In the last 10 years, this fund has grown approximately 6.1% per year. However, if you look at the more recent trends, you'll see that there have been some big losses in terms of the international stock market. So this fund has actually gone down almost 7% in the last year. So my advice is don't put all your money in an international ETF because the international market technically, it really hasn't grown as much as the US market in the past 10-20 years. So if we look at some of the companies included in this fund, you'll see that there are companies like Nestle, Novartis, Roche, Samsung, HSBC, Toyota. So some big companies that we are familiar with. All right, so then next up on our list is the SPDR Portfolio Mid Cap ETF, and this is also called SPMD. So even though this fund has mid-cap in its name, it technically isn't because it actually tracks the S&P 1000 index. So this particular fund actually includes a ton of mid-cap, but also a ton of smaller cap companies in the US. So if you're investing in this particular fund, there probably isn't a need to go out and buy more small cap ETFs. The expense ratio on this fund is currently at 0.05%. It also pays out an annual dividend yield of 1.62%. In terms of growth, this fund has actually performed pretty well in the last 10 years, bringing an average of 13.81% growth per year. So the companies included in this fund include companies such as IDEX Corp, Domino's, Steris, Market Access. So actually I don't know a lot of these companies, and that makes sense because this is a mid and small cap portfolio fund, and that's why we might not have heard of many of these companies on here. And that brings us into the risk, and this fund is actually a little bit above average, and that makes sense because these companies are smaller than the S&P 500 companies, so there is more risk, but there also could be more potential for growth. So yeah, those are some of my favorite TD Ameritrade ETFs that you can buy today. If you're going to buy just one of these funds, I suggest going with the first one, the SPTM fund, because with that you're investing in almost 3,000 companies in the US. So it's a very diversified portfolio of US companies, and it's not too risky. Definitely feel free to invest in some of the international ETFs if you want to further diversify your holdings into the international market. That way, if the US economy goes down, you're actually in a better spot than people that invest solely in US funds. And then in terms of buying practices, if you have the money, you might as well just buy all the funds that you can buy right now. No need to trickle buy and buy over time. Studies have shown that generally if you buy all at once, it performs better than if you buy slowly. And this makes sense because this means you're exposed to the market longer, and with long-term holdings, that means you're generally going to be making more money. And another note, these ETFs aren't traded too much, so when you are buying an ETF, I do recommend that you set a limit order instead of a market order. Using a limit order allows you to set a maximum price that you are willing to pay for an ETF. So if this ETF drops below that price, then you're automatically going to be buying it. Funds that aren't traded as much typically have bigger swings in their value, so that's why it makes sense to use this limit order method. Thanks you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys learned a little bit about the various commission-free ETFs that you can buy right now at TD Ameritrade. So if you're just getting started investing using TD Ameritrade, check out these 3 ETFs, buy them, and then hold them for the long term and see how well your portfolio grows. Oh yeah! I wish you guys the best of luck. If you guys like this video, please make sure to hit that like button. Every like helps me out a ton. A comment below, and then also subscribe if you want to see more videos about investing, about personal finance, and also about entrepreneurship. All right, happy investing. I'll see you guys in the next video.